Still tuning in on 89.5 FM, the month of community radio station in Africa. 061-862-1065. 061-862-1065. That's where you can text us on 89.5 FM. On the line, we are joined by Iain Harris, our event project manager, who will be speaking to us regarding Food Indaba. Iain, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thank you very much for having time to speak to us on 89.5 FM. How have you been up to? How's 2025 for you so far? I know that there's even tariffs going on, but how's 2025 for you so far?
It's always a wild ride, but I'm having a good time.
Yeah, as long as you're managing to maneuver. So, Iain, quickly, you know, there's a lot of things that have been happening around the world, obviously, with things like the whole world is becoming smaller and smaller, a little bit smaller and smaller and smaller. So how will our food system be impacted, you know, for example, by artificial intelligence? But first, let's quickly get to know you.
What would you like to find out?
Let's quickly get to know you as a event project manager for Food Indaba, what entails?
Right. So since 2022, I have been the person responsible for producing the event, for putting it together, making sure that it is well executed, that it's a good event, and that it achieves its objectives. And there are three primary objectives with the Food Indaba, and those are addressing justice, resilience, and health within the food system. So to your question of all these things that are happening in the world and the impact that they have on the food system, I mean, absolutely everything has an impact because, you know, all of us are eating and everything is deeply connected to the production of food, the sale of food, the distribution of food, the health of food. And when it comes to artificial intelligence in these things, I think there's one key idea that I want to kind of share with you when it relates to artificial intelligence, which is that in all of the artificial intelligence models that we're using right now, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Claude, Gemini, whatever it is, of the data that's in the model, about 5% is about Africa. And of that 5% that's about Africa, only 3% is generated by Africans. And so I think we're dealing with a situation where representation of who we are across the continent is not in the model. And so when we put things into the model, if we make requests, the answers that come back do not reflect our realities. Or where they do reflect them, they reflect them in a very, very small way. So typically, if you don't put the race of a person that you want to create an image of in ChatGPT, it will default to white, right? And that's the biases of the West, but that's also because it doesn't have enough examples in its model of what a person who's making a request from this destination is expecting the result to look like, right? And so one of the things that we're looking at as the Food Indaba is how do we address this deficit? Because that lack of data has a big impact on everything, and of course, it'll have a big impact on food systems. So if you ask ChatGPT or any of the others to create a recipe based on indigenous African food items, grains, ingredients, these kinds of things. In some cases, it knows what the ingredients are, but it doesn't really know what to do with them because it doesn't have the data in the model. So for this year's event, which runs from the 7th to the 20th of July, a big part of what we're playing with as a set of ideas is what is our data? You know, we know with social media, we've been giving away our data for years to Facebook, Instagram, all of these services. But we've been giving it away without a lot of thought for what it really means, other than here's my address, this is what I do, these are my friends, this is where I went to school. But there's all these other layers of data which are far, far richer than just those items. And for us, the big question is, how are we living with this data as an awareness of this data? How are we living with an awareness of our data and the value of our data? And I think this speaks to the value of ourselves. This speaks to identity. And in this new world where the internet is basically large language models, we need to ensure that our data is in the models. And how do we do that? How do we augment the LLMs that are out there to ensure that there is greater representation of Africa? And for us working in the food system, this is particularly crucial, because if we don't ensure that the representation in there, our food system is going to continue to suffer. The intelligence that's out there regarding our food system is going to suffer. And one of the key aspects across the continent when it comes to food is the distribution of high quality, nutrient dense food to those who most need it. And one of the interesting deficits in South Africa is that we are food insecure in South Africa, but it's not because we don't produce enough food. We actually have a lot of wastage. That's one of our big problems. One of our challenges is the distribution of this food to the people most in need. And this is one of the areas where we think that AI could have a massive impact. And we need to ensure that it can by continuing to ensure that the right data about us and about our food systems and about our needs are going into the system so that we can use the tools to problem solve effectively.
Again, if you have just tuning in to Bush Radio 89.5 FM, speaking to Iain Harris, who's an event project manager, who's speaking regarding Food Indaba, which will be hosted as soon as possible, and also amazing when it comes to the future, man. So now, Iain, how do you see AI as a tool for driving transformation in Africa's food system over the next decade? We know that Africa has been one of the continent when it comes to food system. We're still a little bit backwards.
Yeah, this is part of the point of having AI in the food system as a theme this year, is that I don't have the answer. This is not my field of expertise, artificial intelligence. I'm learning a lot because I'm putting this event together with the team. We're all learning a lot about AI. We're using it every day and testing out use cases. And, we're speaking to the thought leaders across the continent. But none of us have any real answers. We have ideas, and we have this forum called the Food Indaba for us to come together and interrogate what the situation is currently and how best to use these tools. And so part of what we're doing on the 18th of July, which is the day that we have our AI in the Food System Conference, is we're gathering in Cape Town a collection of thinkers in AI from all over the country and representing different parts of the continent, people who are working in academia when it comes to AI, in the commercial application of AI, in the ethics area of AI, and getting insight from them on where we are and how does it work, because I think a lot of us, we might use the tools, but we don't necessarily know how it actually works. And so it's very helpful to understand the logic behind the systems and what are the implications for the future of the systems as a whole that we are using. But as people who work in the food system, kind of using the space and the thought leadership that's in the room to try and answer some of these questions. I mean, I think what we do know is that there's the potential for us to be used by the tools rather than the tools being used by us. And I think especially in our context where we have these technology deficits, access to information deficits, if you're living in Ontario, you don't have the same challenges of accessing these tools as you do in, say, Tsenin, in the northern part of the country. And so, one of the key points of conversation is how do you begin to ensure that there is inclusive access to these tools? What does it mean from a policy point of view to ensure that there's greater access? Is there a model that the South African government, the Department of Communications, is looking at to make the internet cheaper so that it's more accessible for people, so that these tools can be accessed, so that we close the gap between those who have access to these tools and the advantage that it gives, and those who maybe have less access to these tools and are sitting at a deficit. So we're not starting the process with a set of answers. We're starting the process with a set of tools, and we're bringing those tools together. We're bringing a lot of people together to explore what this thing means for us. And I think this is a very, very important time for us to be having these conversations, because the landscape of artificial intelligence is changing at such a rapid rate. And if we are not on top of it and in terms of our understanding. And if we have an understanding, then we have a better sense of how we might use them and how we might benefit from them, then we are in a good position. And there's an interesting quote from, I think it's the science writer Isaac Asimov from a long time ago, where he talks about historically in the evolution of man, as we've created tools, those tools have shaped us. And in turn, as we've found new tools, those tools have shaped us. So if you look at the shape of the human body today as a result of the work we do using computers and the health issues that are arising, we can clearly see that the intervention of computers in our daily lives has transformed our bodies and has transformed the medical issues we have. And so it's very clear we have to be aware of the tools, and we need to ensure that we understand how to use the tools and not become subservient to the tools.
061-862-1065. We're speaking to Iain Harris, event project manager at Food Indaba. I know that the event is exciting already. People have been buying tickets. How's it going so far?
Well, we've just on Friday released the early bird tickets. So we have a small set of events that already are available online and have discounted ticket prices. So there's the conference itself on the 18th. We're doing something with kids, which is very cool this year. We've struggled with the kids elements for a few years, and I think we've hit the right formula this year. We've partnered with the Cape Town Science Centre in Observatory, just around the corner from you, and we are doing a series of cooking and chemistry workshops for kids aged 6 to 12, where they'll be learning about indigenous plants in the Cape region. And they'll be spending some time with a farmer, tasting these plants, touching, feeling, experiencing these plants, having it in tea, eating it raw. And then they're going to be working with the guys at Tapi Tapi Ice Cream, also just down the road from you. And they're going to be turning these indigenous plants into an ice cream. So they're going to be understanding the chemistry of the ice cream making process. And as well as that, they're going to understand the intersection of the plant world and the world of confections of sweets. And they're going to be making this ice cream under the leadership of one of the Tapi Tapi team and then enjoying this delicious ice cream. So I imagine that they're going to really struggle to eat mpepo and buchu and spekboom when they have it in this raw form. But when they experience it in the ice cream, it's going to be quite transformational. So we're working with the Science Center to do this thing for kids. And we've got walking tours, food systems walking tours in Langa, Bellville, and the Cape Town CBD. And all of these walks are geared towards experiencing and understanding the food system as they are happening now. So, for example, in Bellville, which is kind of the African diaspora culinary capital of the city, there's a very strong linkage between the food market and African food from the diaspora and waste management, and how the Bellville local governance is facilitating the development of all of these things effectively for the benefit of the Bellville communities. And in Langa, there's work being done to create infrastructure for the Smiley meat market. And the walk helps people to understand, what's the food economy in Langa? How do all these things connect? And then in the CBD, we're looking specifically at how the city was shaped around food from the very, very beginning. So there's walking tours. We're working on art exhibitions with the 16 Leratoli Gallery in Langa. We're going to be doing an exhibition around art and AI. And as part of the exhibition, we're going to have 3 events called the Art Cafe, where we have artists hosting an event in the gallery. And we have 2 events which are called Tea with a Farmer, where you go to an urban farm and you meet one of the farmers and you have tea and you tour the farm. We're doing one in Langa and one at the Oranjezicht City Farm in Oranjezicht. We've got an online conference. We've got all sorts of dining events. We're going to have a program for teens as well. So there's a lot of events that we will announce in the next little while. But online, there's 6 events currently that are already available for early bird purchases. And yes, the ticket sales have begun. We're very excited. I think this is the earliest that we've gotten ahead of the curve, to have the ticket sales beginning already, to have the news coming out, to have the opportunity to speak to you, 3 months ahead of the event itself is very exciting. Thanks for giving me the space to talk to you.
Nice, man. This is Iain Harris, event project manager for Food Indaba, which will be in July. I know that you already preparing super hard. The program is crazy, but now I want to know, from your, perspective, to work on such project. Obviously, you have a team or everybody that are doing this. How are you managing it? Because you have a lot. I'm telling you, you have a lot of things to do. It seems like the event program is broken down, obviously, into different ways or focuses. But for you, how long did it take you? Are you having those sleepless nights, or this is just chilled?
It's a mixed bag. I mean, at this stage, it's still quite calm because we're still in the planning and pre-production phases. But once the event begins, that's when it does get kind of crazy. I don't know so much about sleepless nights, but very, very little sleep because it's a high voltage period of time. But to your question, we have a great team this year. So we have a production manager. Her name is Nwabisa Lisa, who previously has worked, she's done many, many different amazing things all over the city, from TV producing to events management. She is herself a radio personality. So we have a very capable production manager, which I'm very excited about. We haven't had a production manager since I started doing this in 2022. We've got a comms manager who also assists us on the production side, Tandi. And we have, we have a lady from Mozambique called Jessica Luxman, who is, she's a senior person who's been working in the food system for many years across the continent. And she's joining us as we run 2 internship programs, a professional internship program, which is like a kind of a quirky, what do you call this? Almost like an executive MBA in food systems. And so this year, for the first time, we have somebody who's not a junior, who's just finishing the undergrad, but somebody who's a qualified senior person in food systems, but who recognizes the Food Indaba as an opportunity to learn and to plug in very deeply to the food system as a whole and make a lot of connections. So Jessica's joining us for 5 weeks to assist with the production. And then we have a young man from the United States, from Ohio, whose name is Anthony. And he's currently studying, and he's taking out 6 weeks to come and be an intern. So this is our junior internship program. And then, that's it. That's us. And then there's me. So there's the 5 of us who are basically the production team. And I'm very excited that this year we have a team of this size and with the kind of skills that everybody is bringing. So it's looking good.
So, and you have a question. Somebody WhatsApp us a question. I think it's 3 or 2 questions. I don't know. Do you want me to read the whole questions and then you're going to answer them, or do you want a 1-1-1? How do you want it? So that we can
maybe just pick one. Let's go with one.
Okay. It's saying, good morning. Got a quick question. This is Anslin. I've just been to the Epping market where fruit and veg is being sold. There is so much wastage. Can we look at partnership with such bulk markets so that there is a proper wastage of fruit and veg and link it into our ecosystem, which could address malnutrition for animals? Example, sanctuaries where animals are kept. Many struggle to feed the undernourished animals, especially in Africa. Basically, it's about a question of wastage in these markets.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Ansley. That's a great one. So I alluded to it earlier. One of our biggest problems in the food system is not that we don't produce enough food, but we actually produce an incredible amount of waste. And again, I think in terms of the theme of this year, this is a crucial area of discussion. How can we use AI and AI tools to assist us with creating less waste? And you'll be glad to know that as part of the program this year, there is going to be a zero waste event. We'll announce the details in the next month or so. But we are working with the V&A Waterfront. They're one of the key sponsors of the event every year. The V&A Waterfront and the Center of Excellence in Food Security are our 2 main sponsors. And the Center of Excellence in Food Security, which is based at the University of the Western Cape, also holds the UNESCO chair in food systems. So, we're sitting with some really significant players when it comes to understanding food from a systemic point of view. Now, the waterfront is making a very strong drive towards zero waste on its precinct. The waterfront's precinct contributes about 5% to South Africa's gross domestic product. So, it's incumbent on them to really look at waste very, very seriously. And so in order to assist them and assist everybody who's thinking about this, one of the events that we will be doing as part of the Food Indaba this year is looking at zero waste. It's quite likely to be an event that happens at the V&A waterfront. And so I don't, again, have the answers to this, but I think a key part of the discussion is going to be this year, what are the tools that we can use and how can we deploy them? And if you think about any restaurant that you go to or takeaway place that you go to, apart from the Epping market, but anywhere where there's food, there is an incredible amount of waste. And there's already a lot of quite simple solutions to reduce the food wastage. A lot of food waste is going to landfill, but it could be going to compost. So there are some quite simple systems to ensure that more organic waste goes to compost than it does to landfill. And that already can make a significant difference. But to get to zero is a huge undertaking. And I think this is where AI could play a significant role, even in the home. I mean, even if you just throw into one of these services, how can I decrease waste in my home? You'll find some really great solutions. And I think part of the challenge is, how do we begin this process at home? We can talk about the world outside of our homes, but it's quite easy to kind of go, that's not my problem because it's not my responsibility. So starting in the home is key.
And also, I don't know if he was adding, or is this another question? He also said another important issue is making the public health data on malnutrition available to influence the various AI tools and model available. But more importantly, it will help the Food Indaba to see where the gaps are using the data from the Department of Health and Wellness Western Cape. And also lastly saying, it's really said that the biggest markets and the farmers are in the rural areas of the Western Cape, but the malnutrition is spiking daily in our rural districts like Danone, Grabo, Ceres, etc.
Yes. So
as Iain, we only have 2 minutes. Quickly.
Okay, quickly. So yes, he's absolutely right. The information is in the public realm. It's there. But I think importantly, and I think this is what he's saying, is how do we get this data into the models so that when you ask the questions, that the data is there and the models are considering this data when it gives you the answers. Childhood stunting, malnutrition, again, massive problems in South Africa. And this is where the discussion around AI, we hope, will be very interesting in the future, because this is not as a result of a lack of food. It's a result of a lack of access to the food that we need. A lot of people are eating foods that are just terrible from a nutrition point of view, and we need to address this issue and work out how do we get the right food to the right people at the right time. Let me leave it there. Thanks so much for giving me time today.
Thank you very much, Iain. And also, again, contact details of people if they want to be part of Food Indaba, what they can do, and also where can they follow on socials.
All right, foodindaba.org. Foodindaba.org is the website to go to. And Food Indaba on Instagram and Facebook and, all of the socials that you want to use. Just look for Food Indaba on there. And the event runs from the 7th to the 20th of July, 2025. And it's going to be at venues right across the city. So look out for the news, look out on social media, and go and take a look at the website, foodindaba.org. Thank
you very much, Iain, and have a beautiful week.
You too. Thanks for the time.
Sweet. That is Iain, event project manager at Food Indaba, speaking to us about the event already early, super early into it and preparing just to be there.